Lon Chaney was an American actor and makeup artist born in 1883. He was most well known for the silent horror movies such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Phantom of the Opera, before dying in 1930 at 40 years old. Even with all types of movie credits under his belt, 11 of his movies have either been partially or fully lost to time, distribution errors, or the MGM Vault Fire in 1965. Before we dive into them, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Now let's get started. Miracle Man was a film that skyrocketed Lon Chaney right into fame when this film came out in August of 1919. This film was so successful that it was still being shown as late as 1927. The only reason we know this film existed is because Paramount made two movie compilations, The House That the Shadows Built, that was released for Paramount's 20th anniversary, and Movie Memories in 1935. Both the compilations included some fragments from Miracle Man. There's only 3 minutes left of this 80-minute film. Thanks to these 3 minutes and the stills that still exist, we can figure out the plot of this film. A gang of 4 people plan to exploit a small town outside of Boston. Lon Chaney plays a member of the gang, a man named Frog, who is a contortionist. The gang uses a patriarch of the church's town to con the town into thinking that they can be cured by said patriarch. But a crippled boy sees this con and hugs the patriarch, and surprisingly, he's cured. This story spreads around the town, and how many people go to this patriarch to be healed, paying the gang to be allowed access to this patriarch. But after a while, one by one, the members of the gang give up their criminal ways after finding love. Now, while there's only 3 minutes left of the original film, you can still watch 30 minutes of this film thanks to being reconstructed with the help of the surviving 3 minutes of film and movie stills. Only a year after The Miracle Man, Lon Chaney landed another movie role. Well, 2 roles. In the 1920s, Treasure Island, based off of the 1883 novel of the same name. He plays 2 background pirates. He plays the pirates Blind Pew and Mary. Even with a star like Lon Chaney, this movie got poor reviews, like this one from the New York Times. Maurice Turner's production of Treasure Island falls so far short of its original that any comparison of the two must emphasize its defects. The most vivid acting is done by the dependable Lon Chaney in 2 roles, first as the Blind Pew, and then as Shirley Mary. This movie is mostly lost, with only stills of the movie existing. Why did this movie become lost to time, you ask? Well, this movie was distributed by Paramount and not MGM, who did their best to preserve the films they made. Combine that with the fact that because of the poor reviews, the film was never redistributed again. It just faded into obscurity. This silent horror movie, based off of the 1897 novel The Octave of Claudius, was released to the public in late 1922. Lon Chaney once again had a dual role in this movie, playing both Dr. Arthur Lamb and a hunchback. Even though the original negative was destroyed, and the remaining prints were destroyed in the MGM Vault Fire, many stills and a few posters and a draft of the script survived. You can read this script draft today if you buy the Anchorman Archives book of the same title on Amazon for only $16 plus shipping. Now, the plot of this movie is very strange. Dr. Lamb is trying to extend the human race's lifespan, while a half-ape man, which is his first failed experiment, wanders around his house. Meanwhile, a failed writer named Robert Sandell is depressed about what's going on in his life. The two meet in the park with Robert trying to rob Dr. Lamb, who then drugs Robert and takes him home to experiment on him. When he wakes up, he sees Dr. Lamb has brought his deathly ill mother and says he'll heal the mother if Robert lets him experiment on him. He lets him, and Dr. Lamb keeps his word, healing Robert's mother, and then letting the two go on their merry way. Later, at a charity ball, Rob is handed a letter by the half-ape man that says he needs to return to Dr. Lamb's lab because of the dangerous effects of the experiment. When he does, he sees dozens and dozens of half-ape men, all being failed experiments. Dr. Lamb shows up and explains that his experiments, and that leads to a fight which Rob loses and is strapped down to an operating table. But the ape man from earlier saves Robert by releasing the other ape men, who then kill Dr. Lamb by breaking his back. The original ape man releases Robert, and Robert goes and marries the love of his life. Therefore, happy ending. Unlike what Lon Chaney is mostly known for, this movie is silent drama instead of a silent horror. This movie was originally named The Gloria Loved, named after the novel this film was based on. Now, looking at surviving stills, you may be asking yourself why Lon Chaney looks younger. I can answer that. This was filmed in 1920, but for unknown reasons, it was released 3 years later in 1923. While this film was praised, it slowly fell into obscurity and became lost. Now, some people think that this movie isn't lost due to a 1932 movie having the same title and following the same plot as the novel, The Glory of Love, but that movie was made 2 years after Chaney had died. This is a silent drama film that was released in October of 1925. It was based off the 1914 novel The Emperor of Portugal. While we still have posters and stills that were printed in magazines, the movie itself is completely lost. As an MGM film, it's thought to have perished in the MGM vault fire, though there are rumors of 2 surviving copies, one in Denmark with no evidence to back that claim up. The other rumor is that Sweden has a copy. That rumor holds some light as a Swedish director, whose name I can't pronounce but will put up on the screen, asked Louis Mayer, the co-founder of MGM, for a copy, and Louis told others to send it, but it has unknown if the copy ever made it to Sweden. This is where the Denmark rumor comes from, as Denmark and Sweden are neighbors. This is a silent drama film released in June of 1926. At one point, this film was fully lost, but half of the film surfaced in an abridged form in the mid-80s. This movie was originally a 7-reel film, but today we only have 3.5 reels left. Now, the found 3.5 reels were in French, so it had to be retranslated back to English by archivist John Morales, so some things are missing in translation. This cut and translated version is now in the Warner Brothers Classics vault. Even with the missing 3.5 reels and the translation, we still have a main plot to this day. A captain played by Chaney and his pregnant wife are on a ship whose crew is close to mutiny. The woman dies giving birth, and the captain gives the baby up to a nun. Later, when the child is all grown up, and the captain is now an evil, vile man who runs a brothel. When he can, the captain visits his daughter, who is repulsed by him since she doesn't know he's her father. Meanwhile, a man called the Admiral has fallen in love with the daughter. The captain catches wind of this and tells the priest who helped raise the daughter that he is taking his daughter and starting a new life. The priest warns that his sins means that he cannot start over. Later, the captain learns that the Admiral is going to marry his daughter and sends his men to kidnap the Admiral. The daughter suspects the captain and goes to the brothel to find her love, but is grabbed by one of the captain's men and is nearly assaulted before the captain saves her. Then the Admiral shows up and thinks that the captain is hurting the daughter and starts fighting the captain. The daughter grabs a knife and stabs her father. With his dying breath, the captain tells Admiral to take his daughter far away as a man that tried to assault his daughter begins to fight him again. The movie ends with a priest walking in to see the captain die from his wounds. This is a 1927 horror movie written by Todd Browning, who y'all may know from his other horror movies, Dracula and Freaks. This is based off of Browning's own novel, The Hypnotist. While Browning made a remake in 1935 called Mark of the Vampire, the only known copy of this movie was destroyed in the MGM bullfire. Despite the fire, posters and stills survive to this day. For our last movie, Lon Chaney's character, the stranger, still has an impact on pop culture to this day, with the Babadook from The Babadook being based off of Lon Chaney's character, the stranger. Now, with some movies that were believed to be lost in the vault fire being found, like 1928's The Cameraman, perhaps there is a copy out there somewhere. This is another Todd Browning film which also starred Lon Chaney. This movie, as well as London After Midnight, are considered the holy grails of lost Chaney films. Just like London After Midnight, this was also lost due to the MGM vault fire. There's a rumor that there's a copy somewhere in Australia, since there are speculations that it was shown in Australia in the 1950s, but this is yet to be proven. While the film didn't survive, the trailer did, which is why we know this film existed in the first place. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. If the trailer survived, why is the film considered lost? Well, the trailer, which has been playing this whole time, doesn't contain any scenes from the movie. This is a silent drama film that was released in April of 1928 and is based off of a 1923 Broadway production, which itself is based off a 1919 play from Italy. This film surprisingly survived the MGM vault fire, with only the fourth reel being destroyed. Luckily, the missing footage isn't important to the movie. An alternate ending, though, was destroyed in the fire. There was a rumor that alternate endings were available to the theaters, but that is unconfirmed. In the movie, Tito, played by Chaney, and another clown finds a girl that was abandoned by her parents. Tito convinces the other clown to take the girl along with him, technically adopting her. A few years later, the girl is caught stealing from a count, but instead of having her arrested, he takes her to meet his guests. 3 years later, Tito is a famous clown suffering from depression, while the count is suffering from uncontrollable laughter. Long story short, Tito has fallen in love with the girl over the years, and the girl only agrees to marry him in pity. So he makes an act where he commits unalive, so the girl will marry someone that she truly loves. As a bonus fact, the Golden Age Joker sings a song from this movie in the comments. This silent crime drama was released in September of 1928. This film mostly survives, with only portions of the sixth reel and seventh being destroyed in the MGM vault fire. The portions that were destroyed amounted to only a few minutes of screen time. Therefore, the story wasn't affected. This movie is worth a watch, so I'm not going to spoil it. Y'all can watch the movie on here or on Dailymotion. This is a silent melodrama released in July of 1929. This would be Lon Chaney's last film before he died. This film was suspected to have perished in the MGM vault fire, but in the 1990s, half a reel, or 5 minutes of the film, was found intact. Then a draft of the script was found in 2013, and finally, in 2020 and 2021, the first 2 reels of audio for the movie was found. This is my lost movie holy grail, because I am a sucker for melodramas. Lon Chaney was an amazing silent era actor, but sadly, these 11 films are all lost to time. If you want to learn more about lost media, or just a fan of it, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!